Hi everyone, and welcome back to ChompCast. As always, I'm Jordan Ricco.
I'm Morgan Leverall.
And I'm Zoe Mechik.
And we have a very exciting episode for you all today. So, today we are joined by honestly an incredible person and one of my favorite people, a UF Law alumni, Melanie Hapner, who also serves as head of regulatory execution at TD Bank. She is a licensed attorney and a global leader in compliance and risk management, leading teams to tackle cybersecurity risks and shape policy at one of the world's biggest companies. From Gainesville to TD Bank, her journey is inspiring, and we're ready to dive in. Melanie, welcome to ChompCast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jordan, and thank you for that warm welcome. You guys are great.
Thank you. No, we've done it enough at this point,
Yeah,
hopefully.
seriously.
Thank you.
So let's start right at your beginning.
Sure.
How did you grow up before going to Georgia Southern University for your bachelor's and then UF Law? Can you share a little bit about your early life? Did you always see yourself heading towards this career, or kind of what was your early life like?
Yeah, sure. So my early life was great, just a blessing, I would say. You know, I grew up with 4 siblings, there's 5 of us, and my 2 parents, my mom and my dad. Early childhood, my earliest defining memories are just family time, hanging out with, my parents, my grandparents. I was born and partly raised down in South Florida, down in Miami. My grandfather started teaching me tennis, so
Awesome.
that's how I became a tennis player. He was a ball boy, and he started teaching my sister and I, so by probably middle elementary school, maybe 3rd grade, I was playing competitive tennis,
That's awesome.
and that's just a huge defining part of my story and my journey. So played tennis with my older sister from then on throughout high school, and went to college on a full tennis scholarship. That's how I got to Georgia Southern.
That's awesome.
And I was always interested in compliance because my father worked in compliance. He worked for Exactech, actually, the Exactech. And yeah, he worked for Exactech. And so while he was working there, kind of encouraged me to consider compliance. It's a great career, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So when I went to undergrad at Georgia Southern, I was obviously playing tennis, and I wanted to make sure that I was in a major that I really loved.
Right.
And for me, that was multimedia communications.
Yeah.
So I did broadcast journalism for my my undergraduate degree. I also minored in Spanish because I had taken Spanish all throughout since I lived in Miami since I was growing up.
Yep.
And after that, I just decided to go to law school. I was like, yeah, tennis is not going to be for me after this. And I wanted to go to law school, and I really wanted to go to the University of Florida. By this time, my parents lived in Gainesville, and I was like, let's come back home and go to the University of Florida, and that's how I got there.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
You just touched on this, but any other reasons why you came to UF's Levin College of Law for your JD? What drew you to Gainesville and UF Law? And what was your experience here as a law student?
Yeah, the Gators, there's just nowhere like the University of Florida. That to me is the premier school, especially if you're from anywhere, right? Because everybody wants to be a Gator regardless. But especially in Florida, there's just no other option, there's no other choice. So I really wanted to go to the University of Florida Law School. Was very thankful that I got in because it was a very competitive school, very competitive process to get in. So thankfully I got in. I had a great experience at the law school. I was part of a bunch of different organizations, the John Marshall Bar Association, the Black Law Student Association. I worked at the library, so I was a little librarian.
I love that.
And I met my husband there,
Aww.
so that was a great little, Gator love story.
Yes.
We love those on ChompCast.
Yeah, yeah. So I had some really good experience. Met some of my best friends to this day at UF Law, and it was just a really, really great and life-defining experience.
That's awesome. It's awesome to hear that, as someone who's also finding their friends and building that community, to hear such a awesome story about how you met the love of your life here in Gainesville at UF, so that's really awesome to hear.
Yeah.
You touched on this a little bit, how your father kind of had an impact on your ultimate career choice and motivating you. Was there a specific moment that you realized that it was law and risk management? Did you have that aha moment where it just kind of set in that you felt that was your calling?
I honestly did not feel like I had a calling. It was mostly like process of elimination. So, just being honest, by the time I got to middle school, I realized science was a no-go for me, that I wasn't great at that. By
Right.
the time I got to high school, I realized math, not really my best. Pre-calculus wasn't, my greatest success. I made good grades, but I feel like in order to be really successful, it's not just about like, you actually have to like you want to do something that like comes naturally to you.
Play to your
and
strengths.
Play to your strengths, and that was not a strength of mine. So when I was thinking about, my college career and my trajectory, I definitely knew that I wanted to play college tennis. So I focused on that. I knew that I wanted to essentially just do well in school. Yeah. And I really got to the point where I was like, well, what am I going to do next? And it was like the only option for me is to go to law school, because everything else sounds immensely boring. I don't know what I want to do as a career. If I go to law school, then I'll have a million different options, whether it be to like practice as an attorney
Right.
or work in the corporate setting or whatever. So I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to law school, because what was I going to do after I graduated?
Right.
So mostly process of elimination. And then when I got out, I did have, my father as just a father and a mentor and, a guider. And he wasn't necessarily thinking financial services, which is where I started, because he was doing medical device compliance, which is very, 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 very different. But that's where I got a role and a job. And so I just kind of like, at first, when I got that job, I actually got it through the Career Center at the University of Florida Law School. They had sent a note to me and like maybe 20 other students who indicated that they wanted to work in like a compliance profession. And so I applied for it and I got the role. When I got the role, I was like, but I'm not good at math. Okay, remember, I told you my high school experience.
Right.
I realized that I wasn't. And so for me, I just thought that all banking jobs had to do with
I mean, I feel like it's common misconception.
Yeah.
common misconception. Once
awesome.
I got there, I was in regulatory compliance, and so I realized that I could really put my law degree to use without practicing as an attorney. I like to talk. Okay, so I was in the corporate world, so there was a lot of people to talk to and just water cooler conversations and, frolicking around campus, meeting people, like all of those things, which I was like, yeah, this is the job for me. And even now my husband will tell me, he's like, all you do all day is talk. That's what you do. That's if you ask him what I do, he's like, you talk. You go to your office and you sit on your computer and you talk to people. He's not wrong, because there's so much of my day is spent in meetings, but there's a lot of things that happen in the background that he doesn't see. But anyways, it does.
But he doesn't
kind of
hear. He hears you
right,
talking the whole
right.
day. He doesn't see you doing work at the
He
same
doesn't
time.
exactly.
Okay, we love a multitasker. Like,
Exactly.
There we go.
Exactly. So yeah.
And you were in communications, so that's perfect.
Exactly. Well, then that's why I did communications, because I liked talking. I liked the news. I thought that I was going to be like at one point I wanted to be a meteorologist.
Oh, we've had a few of them on ChompCast, actually.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to be good at science, I think.
Yeah,
It's a really hard career.
Yeah, it's not just like when you're younger, you're just like, oh, I could stand up there and point at the map and be like, oh yeah, the rain is coming from that side. It says no. It's not.
No.
It's not what it is.
They have full degrees in meteorology. Like, they're scientists. Like,
Yep.
It's crazy. But I love that we actually were able to debunk it on ChompCast, because I was like, that's kind of a common misconception too, I feel like.
Yeah, those people are legit. And I was like, yeah, so guess we're gonna go to law school.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I love it. So after law school, right, you said you have all these different ideas, different plans that you could go for now that you have your law degree.
Mm-hmm.
So you started your career at Bank United,
Mm-hmm.
and you worked your way all the way up to a vice president role,
Mm-hmm.
focusing on risk and compliance. What inspired you when you were at UF Law, where you were like, okay, I can go into risk? I know that was kind of your plan. But I think a lot of people get caught up in like, okay, I'm at law school. I have to kind of be an attorney. I have to fall into these big law paths or this or that, or work at like this partner or whatever, work for that partnership or whatever. So what inspired you to be like, I know I'm going to go into the corporate world. I know I'm going to stay steadfast and focused on that, and then eventually lead to your roles at Bank United, Amazon, and now TD Bank?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. And I think part of it is um, I don't like to argue with people.
Yeah.
I am okay with debating, but one thing that I don't like to do is argue because I don't like to feel pressure to convince people that my opinion is the right opinion, because I recognize that there are many different opinions by people that are made up of many different experiences defined by
Right.
their particular perception and reality, right? And so I love to have conversations with people. I love to hear people's perspectives. I love to even potentially debate those perspectives. But to me, there doesn't have to be a winner in the argument. If you're practicing law, there has to be your work, like, not only you're not, it's just like you're just arguing with people because and you have to on behalf of your clients. And I just did not see a life of for me. But I think that that's, again, my husband is an attorney and he loves it and he, is great at it. It just, for me, felt like it would be mentally exhausting,
Right.
and taxing. I also didn't like what I saw in terms of a lot of law firm culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
and it's changing, but definitely,
I
get what you're saying though. It's still very prevalent in the industry.
It's changing, but I think the idea of working at a corporation is everybody's working for the same, like, person,
Right.
like everybody's working for the same corporation. Like, ideally, we should be working in furtherance of the same goals and objectives and
Right.
working more, together as opposed to with the opposing counsel. You know what I mean?
True.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
at TD, I don't have to worry about what they're doing over at JP Morgan. I just like work. So, like, that's just my thoughts on like how I felt like it might be just better suited for me to go
Right.
into the corporate world as opposed to the legal world. And a lot of it just felt like was my perception on it. I was on the Bolsa trial team when I was in law school, and I was very good at it. I won Best Oral Advocate at a national competition. Wow. It was very fun. It was awesome. But I also like felt stressed doing it.
Yeah.
It was fun, but it was still stressful. Like getting up there, having to be on like, my P's and Q's all
Right.
the time, and like making sure I knew all the facts, all of this, all of that. Like there wasn't a lot of winging it, And right. I feel like I am the type of person that flies by the seat of their pants. So I'm like, I can't do that if I have that job. Like, I got to be more structured.
Yeah.
And I feel like in my role, like, I have the experiences, the knowledge, the skill set. Like, I don't feel like I have to like prepare for my day. Like, I can show up and do a really good job and do my job without like all like the forethought of all the preparation.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. I'm sure a ton of graduate students also feel, or students pursuing graduate studies such as law school, also feel like they want a role within law, but they don't want to have that argument aspect. Do you have any advice for those who want to pursue law but not directly want to be an attorney?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of attorneys that do transactional work, which is, and that's something that I thought about and I considered. I think ultimately, though, like, people should do whatever they feel. There's a reason that there's so many career types and jobs and opportunities out there.
Speaking on misconceptions,
Okay.
I think a lot of students pursuing graduate studies, such as law, feel like they need to be lawyers or they need to be in the courtroom. And you have clearly proven otherwise. Do you have any advice to those students who might want to pursue law but don't want to have that argumentative aspect of it?
Yeah, so there's many professions, even like legal professions, where you don't have to argue with people. There's a lot of transactional work that's kind of like behind the scenes where you can work collaboratively with your clients. Like wills, estates, and trusts might be one of those, right? For I'm sure there are many other transactional corporate roles as well, that people can do. But I think the main thing here is like, you just do what your heart desires. Do what it is that you want to do. There's so many different types of careers out there, so many different types of opportunities, and your degree does not define what you have to do in the end. Your degree should support you in different ways, but a lot of gaining your degree, especially a law degree, is it teaches you how to think, and it teaches you just how to, elevate your strategic mind as well. And that is applicable beyond the courtroom or beyond a law firm. And so there's no like shame or shade on any profession at all. It's all about the individual and the person, and you got to think about what is good for you, where you're going to thrive, where you're going to do your best work, and that's where you should be, because that's also where you're going to be happy. I mean, this is life, right? And so you want to make sure that your life is extraordinarily balanced, and that you're not killing yourself over work. You all have families, you all have friends. Your families will grow over time. Your friend group will grow and change over time. And you want to make sure that you have time for all of those relationships as well. And that everything isn't just about, work. And what you'll find is that if you pursue a career that you choose, not what people expect of you because of the degree that you have or because of how they see you, then you'll have time and opportunity for many of those things, because you'll basically be in your bag. It'll be so easy. It'll just be what you want to do. And people will be like, they'll start asking you, well, how do you do all of those things, right? How do you get, and it's because like you've chosen the things that are best suited for you, not necessarily what people see you as.
Yeah, and I think you also know yourself better than anyone can really know you at the end of the day. And like you said earlier, it's playing to your strengths and knowing what's going to fit for your life. Doesn't always fit for the life that people can imagine for you. And so many times, like, I'll have these dreams and stuff, and like, oh, like, that's not going to happen. Like, even starting this podcast, like, it's like, oh, well, actually, you're going to go to this part of student government, you're going to do this or that or this. And it's like, well, what if you want to start something new? What if that doesn't look the same way that everyone else wants to? And thank God that I did that. And thank God I played to my strengths with that, because it's come from so many amazing things now, and such an amazing team with amazing people, and meeting people like you. And so definitely just bet on yourself.
Bet on yourself. Reserve the right to pivot. You don't have to continue down the same exact road that you started. Like, sure, if you go to law school, I would encourage you to finish your degree. Like, I'm not saying necessarily like pivot from like your majors, but once you get into a career, like, change it. Do something different. Like, do whatever. If you get into something and it doesn't feel exactly right, go do something else. Like, the worst thing you can do is just feel kind of just like stuck and in a rut. There's just so many careers out there to have and to love, that it just doesn't make sense for you to spend time in a role or in an opportunity that just doesn't feel like an opportunity for you. What an opportunity for me may not be an opportunity for somebody else. That just might be a complete drag. And so that's just the reality of it.
How do you think that loving what you do and pursuing to choose to do what you love has impacted your career? Do you think that it's made it a more enjoyable experience coming into the office every day, excited for what you're going to do?
I think so. So I like what I do. More importantly, though, I typically like the people that I work with. You can like the topics, but if you're working with people who are just like not that great, it's not fun. It's not fun at all. And so everywhere I go, I try to make sure that I'm joining an organization that has a culture that I'm aligned with. I try to make sure that there are people that I see within my interview process that I could really get along with. And then when I get there, I do my best to bring people along with me. People that like I know I can work really well with. People that I know have, not just a good and strong work ethic, but people who will like do a job well done with me and alongside me, and we can have fun doing it together. So every place that I have worked with people that I know and people that I like and love. And I will try to continue to make sure that that happens throughout my career, because I just think that it's important. It's important to just like where you are, on top of liking the topics or the domain.
So we're gonna shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
So you worked your way up to head of risk and security assurance at Amazon.
Mhm.
You were leading global teams to manage cybersecurity risks. So for our listeners, can you break down what that role looks like? What does typical day look like for you? If there is such a thing as a typical day.
Yeah. I would say there's a typical day in terms of like it's the domain is the same, right? And so um in my role as in my role at Amazon, I originally started at Amazon in a policy role, right? First of all, just backing up, Amazon, obviously, like one of the largest companies in the entire world, over 1 million employees globally, just spanning
So crazy.
so many different businesses. We have the retail business, we have, Amazon Pay, we have our Amazon Health with our pharmacy, we have our entire customer logistics network, right? So we have all of these things. And joining Amazon was just like a wow moment, because
Right.
it's like you like look around and it's like, how does all of this stuff operate, and how am I going to do this particular job for this massive organization?
Right.
And when I got there, there really was the mandate was to build and create and expand their suite of cybersecurity policies. So that was like my core function and my core role. I had never worked in information security before this. Okay. So I was like, you guys know I don't work in information security. Prior to this, I was working at the bank, and I did risk management. I did what's called governance, risk, and compliance. And so I did have a policy team. I was very familiar with how to create, update, and govern policies. I was very familiar with that entire process. I was also very familiar with different types of risk: information security risk, physical security risk, operational risk, compliance risk, many different types of risks. And so I was familiar with information security, but I had never worked in a technology organization. I said, that's fine. You've got all of it. You're what we want to come and do this job, right?
Here we go.
And so I was like, yeah, okay. Got there. I spent a lot of time just like learning and trying to understand the domain, working with engineers, working with just other people across the organization to build information security requirements, not just internally, but also for our third-party network, which is also massive for Amazon, right, and a global network. And as I started drafting those policies and working with subject matter experts in all of the different security domains, I began to learn the technical requirements for keeping information safe, for data security, all of those things. When I built out that entire program, that program was called the Governance of Policies and Standards. Everybody loved it. They were like, this is great. This is cool. And I was like, all right, I did some. So after I built out that Governance of Policies and Standards program, everybody was like, oh, this is great, And I was like, okay, I did that. I learned all about this information security. I built policies that like can like stand on 2 feet for both internally and externally for our third-party security partners. And it was a great job. Well, in the meantime, I had a peer who I still love to this day. He works at a different company now, though. He left, and my leadership came to me and they were like, hey, you have a risk management background as well as a policy background, don't you? And I was like, yes. And they were like, we also think you can do this job too. And they asked me to take on that team, and then they promoted me.
Wow.
And so I was promoted from head of governance of policies and standards to head of risk and security assurance. And then I acquired another team. When I acquired that team, I became responsible for cybersecurity risk management for our particular organization, and also security assurance. And this was my first time leading a team of like highly performing technical people, security engineers, technical program managers.
Yeah.
And that particular organization was just responsible for identifying, assessing, and monitoring our security risk posture across the organization. And what that basically means is building certain types of data sets, tools, and metrics that enable us to understand like how well are we doing in protecting our customers' data, essentially is what it boils down to. It's obviously more complicated than that when you peek under the sheets, but like that's essentially what we're doing. When, Jordan calls Amazon.com and wants to know about her order, how are we keeping her information safe? Not just from, cyber incidences, people on the dark web looking for Jordan's information, but also from internal, potentially internal threat actors, which we call insiders, making sure that people who are supposed to have your information do the right thing with your information and only access your information when they're supposed to and under those circumstances. So that's basically what that team was responsible for. So I ended up leading both governance of policies and standards and risk and security assurance.
That's so crazy. Like, what was like the hardest part of that? Because I guess probably managing these technical people and figuring that out, or was it kind of that team leading? Or I mean, I feel like you're like a natural leader in that way. What was something that was like kind of a difficult thing you faced?
I think one of
maybe like the favorite things that you took from that.
Yeah, one of the most difficult things, I think, just being a person who is new to the domain is acceptance.
Yeah.
Because people will always challenge you on what do you bring to the table, especially if you have a different skill set or background.
Right.
And earlier in the podcast, I talked about there's a job for everyone, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're thinking about leading a, information security risk, cybersecurity risk team, and I have a bunch of engineers. These people have computer science backgrounds, right?
Right.
They can sit at a computer and code and build an application, and I don't have that skill set.
Yeah, I'm like.
And so I think acceptance was one of the most difficult parts when taking on that team in particular, because I think a lot of them were like, well, what skills do you have to get us over the line here?
Right.
And this is normal, but we experienced a lot of attrition during that time as well. And that was okay with me because, again, I am a huge proponent in you do you, and we'll figure out what to do on this side. And so while, difficult to deal with attrition because you're left with a team that is like very small and you have to rehire, I encourage everyone, like, do what's right for you. I'm not offended if you guys decide to leave and find a new job. You don't have to hide that from me.
Yeah.
In fact, it's better if you just tell me what your plans are so that I can prepare the organization, And so that's what I did.
Love it.
Rehired, tried to find people that I knew would be good at the job and at the role. And, that was very successful for us. So also being a woman leader in tech is not totally common.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon,
right?
But it's definitely not, it's definitely a male driven space, you know? And so you kind of got to show up in meetings and got to be confident in who you are, be confident in what you bring to the table. And when you're confident in what you bring to the table, you're also confident that what you bring to the table is not the same thing that someone else does.
Right.
And so that goes into other people's expectations. A lot of times people will sit down at a table, and if you're going to have a conversation about a particular topic, they will believe that you should know just as much as they know about that topic, when really that's not necessarily the case.
Right.
I'm going to know different things about that topic, or I'm going to have a different perspective on that topic.
Yep. And
I would love and value your perspective on that topic. And if I don't present the information that you think that I should present, that's not my problem.
Right.
That's your problem. And so when you think about sitting at a table with somebody and them not liking the information that you're presenting, it's like, well, you need to find the person with that particular skill set, background, and experience that is here, because clearly it's not you. And it's also not me, right?
Exactly. No, exactly.
So I think just like knowing exactly what I bring to the table at every conversation helps, because people will try to rattle you.
Oh yeah.
They will try to rattle you with questions that they don't even know the answers to, right? And especially when you're a woman in this field. And so you got to always be okay with saying, and if it's a question that you think that you should know the answer to, but you don't have right then, you have to be okay with saying, you know what, I'll get back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's going to happen between now and 2 hours from now, the world is not going to fall apart. So
I love that. You recently started at TD Bank. What prompted you to make this professional change?
So remember that thing I told you about, like liking the people that you work with and being in an environment that you feel like culturally like represents where you want to be? No shade to Amazon. I had a great experience there for 4.5 years. I love a lot of the people that I work with. I would work with many of them again. But I just think, as what happens in corporations is you have big organizational changes. You have a lot of like fundamental changes in leadership, which is great. Organizations should do what they want to do. They should move in the direction that they think that they should be moving in. But that might not be in my alignment, right? You're hired by a particular person in a particular organization. You're doing what you want to do. And then all of a sudden you're a part of a reorganization and it just doesn't feel as aligned, or the mission may not feel as aligned as to what you were doing before.
Yeah.
That's really ultimately it for me.
Right.
Like it just didn't, it felt like it was time. And I think whenever I've been through many, many, many reorganizations in my career, and the last one that I went through at Amazon was not the first one that I went through at Amazon. And every time there's a reorganization, I think it's a defining moment, because organizations go through reorgs in order to better align themselves. And so I always take that as an opportunity to understand where I am and better align myself. And a lot of times it's still with that organization.
Yeah.
But in the final reorg, it just wasn't for me. And
that speaks though to the entirety of this conversation. I feel like you're always like embrace the pivot. Like you can do that also if it doesn't align with where you're at or the path that you're making for yourself. There's no shame in choosing you, better than you.
Absolutely no shame. No shame at all. And your story is your story. You write it. And the reasons that you choose to do something else are the reasons that you choose. And you don't owe an explanation to anybody about why you chose to stay or why you didn't choose to stay, right?
Yeah.
It's all about what's good for you. Another thing is Amazon was going through a return to office, and I'm not returning to office. So like, I hate to say it like that, but I'm not. I have 3 young kids. Their ages, one's turning 3 this month and the other is 5 and 7.
Which you have a medal just for that.
So let's go.
Yes.
Thank you. And so obviously they take up a lot of time, which is great. Amazon doesn't have corporate offices in Florida, which is not great for me. And I wasn't going to relocate my family. My husband is barred in Florida, and our whole family is here. So just wasn't in the cards for me. And so many different decisions, I think, that are in the best interest of Amazon.com just were not in my best interest personally. And so I had to get with an organization that was aligned with me personally. And I'm thankful that that was TD.
Yeah. I'm just wearing the green for
I'm wearing
TD
the
today.
green, got to put the green on.
Love it.
Thank you.
So Melanie, you're a role model for UF students, especially those in law or eyeing careers in tech or compliance. So what's one piece of advice you'd give to a current UF student about chasing a big career goal like yours?
I would say just keep going. You're going to have to embrace the setbacks. Don't go for the highest paying job. Go for the job where people want you. When I was in high school, I had a person tell me when I was being recruited for tennis, go to the school that wants you. Yep. Go to the school. And what he meant by that is a school will show you that they want you. And for me, that was in terms of like a scholarship, right? Mm-hmm. They would give you a scholarship. They'll give you benefits. They will want you to come there, right? When I think about a career or, jobs, you got to go where you're just aligned, and so that want is just going to look like an organization in the location that you want. The people that you've talked to are feeding more than just your ego, right? A place where you can build relationships and friends, because when you do that, that's how you're actually going to learn. Because in order to learn, you have to feel comfortable with people, because you have to be vulnerable enough to say, I don't know how to do that thing, or can you bring me to that particular place or meeting? Or in the best case scenario, they will begin offering to bring you. They will assume that you don't know, and they will start showing you, right? That's not going to exist everywhere. Some places you will be thrown to the wolves, right?
Yep.
And in the long run, that doesn't actually help your career. When I graduated from law school, I took a pretty low paying job to get valuable experience for about a year and a half. I knew that I was underpaid in that role for a year and a half while I did that work. And I knew that there were people around me who were getting paid more than me. When you focus on yourself, that stuff doesn't matter anymore, because I also understood the value that I was getting. And I just knew that I was going to make up for it very, very, very quickly. I did. I chose the mentorship. I chose the guidance. I chose the experience. I chose the visibility over the dollars for a few years at a law school. And it paid off immensely for me in a very short period of time. I could have taken other high paying jobs, and I didn't. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because that experience that I gained when I was in that particular job is the one that catapulted me to my vice president role, which again was another great experience, right? And so when you choose the job based on what you're getting out of it beyond dollars will always come for people. And so that would be my main encouragement, because I hear a lot of students and a lot of people straight out of their schooling talking about, oh, well, this job is going to pay me this and this job is going to pay me that. And that's kind of a core focus for a lot of people. And I understand why. But the narrative, I think, really has to be, well, this job is going to give me this opportunity versus this job. Because you'll find that a lot of the high paying jobs are going to put you in milling type of work. You're just going to be you're not going to be in the meeting. Right. And when you're in the meeting, that's when you learn, right?
Oh yeah.
You're not going to be in the meeting. You're not going to be in the, at the dinner table. You're going to be in your cubicle.
Yep. At your
desk, pushing all the paperwork. And there's value. There's value in that. I'm not saying that there's not, because there is. But the ideal world is that you get to do both, right? So you're in your desk, and then somebody comes to your desk while you're in the middle, and they're like, hey, I've got this meeting with the chief operating officer. Do you want to come and sit in?
And you're like, yes.
And then you're like, absolutely. Because I can stop doing this work, and then you'd also learn other things, you know?
That's been a common theme that we've had from really successful people, is that sometimes you have to take that first few years of your career to really learn, because at the end of the day, as college prepares you, law school prepares you to think and act and do work in a certain way. But until you're actually in your career is when you get that real experience and that real opportunity to be like, okay, well, yes, I might have studied finance, but what does this have to do with the actual risk in motion? And so that's important. I also wanted to touch on that because you're actually an adjunct professor here at UF Law, teaching regulatory compliance and risk management. So how does teaching shape your perspective on your day job, having this real experience now? How do you kind of work that into your class? And what do you love about giving back to UF in this way?
I don't know. I just love teaching because I love the students. And, people always say you really know something when you can teach somebody else the thing. And it's so true, because as I'm preparing for my class, as I'm preparing the syllabus, and I'm, preparing my slides and my lectures, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is, this is, and so as I'm building out all of the frameworks of risk management, I'm also reminding myself, because in practice, it's not the same as the study of it. It's just a little bit different. And so I think being an adjunct professor and teaching really helps me as well, because it helps me get to like the actual like core and like the textbook style of the work, which doesn't always come through in the day to day, which is part of what I like about the job, but it kind of gets me back in like learning mode. So like I'm like kind of refreshing my textbook of risk and compliance as I'm teaching the students. And especially at the law school, I like doing this course because it's atypical from the type of courses that they typically get. It's not obviously like a core legal course that they get, of evidence or criminal law or civil procedure or tort class. And so I love giving them that experience and opening their eyes to the idea that you can do so many things with your law degree, not steering them, because I would never steer any person in any particular way. I will give advice, and when people ask me for it, I have many of mentees, but I just think knowledge is power, and that's really the bottom line.
For sure.
Awesome. Speaking of your role as a mentor, what's one lesson or mindset that you live by and you would share with others?
Be kind, be empathetic, and just be you. I have been doing people leadership for a long time now.
Yep.
I've always had like pretty big teams. And the truth of the matter is kind of like we talked about earlier in the podcast. There's your real life with your friends and your family, and then there's work. And life is life. Every day is not a good day. And you'll come into work sometimes and you'll have to put on a face that makes it look like you had a good day, right? And I think as a boss, I have to be empathetic to the idea that like if somebody pings me and says like, hey, I'm gonna be late today, like I'm not the boss that's gonna say, well, why?
Right.
Why are you gonna be late, right? People have lives, they have things, and there's always like an underlying situation that somebody may be going through. And so I think being empathetic is extraordinarily important. Being kind to people, even when you disagree with them, is extraordinarily important. And just doing what it is that feeds you. I mean, you can't go wrong if you're doing all three of those things. Nobody wants to work with a jerk. I mean, think about it. Like,
it rhymes too. Nobody wants to work with a jerk.
Nobody wants to work with a jerk. So, I mean, I think it's in a lot of people's nature to be kind, but when you really think about it, sometimes it's kind of not. You know what I mean? There's just a lot of people. Yeah. So
I love that. So, Melanie, this has been such an inspiring dive into your journey from UF Law to leading global risk strategy. Your story shows that Gators can achieve with grit and vision. So before we go, what's next for you? Any exciting projects or goals that you're working on right now that you want to share with our listeners?
Oh, let me see.
I mean, new job, like
yeah,
new
I
era.
got a new job, new era. So I got to figure out what's going on there. I have a whole team that I need to onboard and hire. So I got to figure out what's going to happen there. Any Gators out there, But yeah, really, so this month is my daughter is turning 3, so we're really excited about that. So that's something that's upcoming that's really exciting. My husband and I have been married for 10 years this month.
No,
yeah,
it's a busy month.
Busy month, 10-year wedding anniversary. So busy personal month for sure. It'll also be busy work-wise since I'm still, new and ramping up at TD. So those are probably like the main things,
Okay, well, we'll be cheering you on in everything that you do, along with the Gators, hopefully. But Melanie, actually, thank you so much for joining us today on ChompCast. And to our listeners, you can take inspiration from Melanie's story in so many ways, and being yourself, being authentic, being empathetic and kind, and just betting on yourself, playing to your strengths. I feel very uplifted from this episode.
Yes,
I'm ready to go take on the world.
Let's go.
So please take inspiration from her story, as well as if you're interested in going to UF Law or a UF Law student, take her class.
Yeah.
Right? Like, even if you don't know anything about like risk, but you're like, oh, what is this? This is seeming like an interesting episode. hey, go learn more.
Yeah, it's in the spring.
There we go. Perfect. Well, that's all for this episode of ChompCast. So make sure to subscribe and follow us on all of our platforms for more Gator stories. And until next time, all together, Gator Chomp. Go Gators!
Go Gators.